Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session, Developing Your Digital Strategy with Data, as part of Data Echo Culture. My name is Katie Moffat, and I am Head of Digital at the Audience Agency in the UK. We have two fantastic speakers here for you today. We have Charlotte Gross, from the who is the Director of Audience and Media at the National Theatre of Scotland. Charlotte has a long career working first in the music industry in France and then moving to London, working for EMI. Charlotte's worked for Scottish Ballet as their Head of Marketing and Communications, and is, as I say, currently Director of Audience and Media at National Theatre of Scotland. We also have joining us here today Frédérique Brault, who is Director of Communications, Marketing and Sales at Théâtre du Nouveau Monde. Frédérique is a manager with more than 25 years experience in sales management of major professional sports and cultural organisations. So we're really delighted to have our speakers with us today. We have a live transcriber for the session. You can select your language, French or English, by clicking on the options at the bottom of the Zoom window. The session is being recorded. It will be retransmitted. So if you don't agree to appear on the recording, please just turn your camera off. So the format for this session is each of our speakers is going to talk for around 10 minutes each. They're going to talk about their own, the approach of their respective organisations. And we are then going to have a panel discussion, and there is time for questions. We welcome questions from you all. If you want to share them into the chat, we will get to those for sure. So that's everything for me for now. I'd like to invite Charlotte to please share her presentation and get us started. Thanks, Charlotte.
Bonjour, bonjour. Donc je suis ravie de vous joindre aujourd'hui. Je vous parle depuis Glasgow et en Écosse. Et si je comprends bien, l'Écosse, c'est un petit bout du Canada qui s'est séparé il y a 1 million d'années, qui est venu se poser au-dessus de l'Angleterre. Donc il y a une connexion forte là, plus la connexion de la langue. Donc je vais switcher en anglais parce que je travaille depuis trop longtemps maintenant en Grande-Bretagne et donc c'est plus facile pour moi. Et je vais partager mon écran. Yes. So I'm going to speak to you today about one of the projects, one of the digital projects that we've done last year during the lockdown. We've done several, but I thought this one was interesting because it was one where data was difficult to gather for us because it wasn't a ticketed online project, and so I just thought it was an interesting kind of outlook on how we dealt with that. So first, a little bit about reflection that happened before the lockdown for us, looking at how audiences engaged with us online, on social media, and on our websites, and what was most engaging for them. And the simple answer was video. There's always been a very strong engagement rate on all our social media channels and on our web pages on video, and particularly actually short video, just because as a format, it's something that is easy to share, comment, there's a kind of word of mouth quality to it that has always worked. And we had started to do some short form video and artistic video. So all arts organizations use social media to sell shows, but we quickly work out that if you speak to people only wanting to sell them something, this is not a very fruitful relationship. And actually to release short form videos is a really brilliant way to engage audiences in a meaningful way and for them to understand better also who you are artistically online. So when the lockdown happened in Scotland in March last year, we got together as an organization and tried to find a way that we could still connect with our audience, but also importantly, we could still offer paid work to all the creatives and actors and that were suddenly without any work. And we created this project called Scenes for Survival. And there were 55 short films that we created over a period of a few months with Scottish talents. So writers, the creative team was writer, one or more performers and a director. There was a really large array of creatives that got engaged. Some of them were really at the height of their career, and they very generously accepted to come on board and do this project and kind of not asking for a fee so we could engage more people, and then really up and coming actors who through this program got deals with new agents, etc. We had a partnership with BBC Scotland and BBC4, BBC Arts in Quarantine, which really helped increasing the reach of the project. And Screen Scotland helped us to fund the project as well. Because it was in lockdown, we couldn't do we had to do everything remotely. Everything was filmed on phones with remote technical support. And we partner with venues and organizations across Scotland who, again, didn't have any touring happening and therefore didn't have any reason to connect with an audience. And doing those films in partnership with them gave them an opportunity, again, to be active on their social media channels. And we also created the Scenes for Survival Hardship Fund, which was a fundraising opportunity to give money to freelancers, which we felt were the people that were most hardly touched by this crisis. So as I said, there was low production values. We created films to help the creatives to kind of set themselves up in their houses to film themselves. And we shared those publicly, actually, because the BBC told us that they use them with some of their creatives, and we felt actually there's maybe a need. It's maybe useful for other people. So they're online and they're accessible for everyone. And National Theatre of Scotland is a theatre without walls, so we don't have a venue. We tour everywhere in Scotland in traditional theatre venues, but we also go to parks, to swimming pools, to mountains, to wherever the audience is. But we are a theatre for everyone as well. So we try everything that we do to be accessible. So all our videos had a BSL introduction, and they were also audio described for our visually impaired patrons. A key thing with this project was to really listen to our audience. So the films were broadcasted through social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, with a cross-posting facility with the BBC. So we were posting the same file, accumulating views in that way. And so the algorithms of each of those platforms like that and push that further. We have, I think, now just over 16 million views across all those videos. And we were really listening to our audience. So as an example, you see Alone. I don't know if you know the wonderful Jenny Godless. She's a Scottish comedian who does voiceover of politics personalities with this really thick Glaswegian accents. She's really funny, but she did this very poignant film about coercive relationship in a couple and what that does to you. And after the first film that we did, people were asking for more, and we gave them more. And we actually ended up doing 4 films in this series because people were asking for more. Another example is The Longest Summer, which was which had a song composed by We Are Noisemaker and sang by Ian Rankin from Outlander. And people again ask us, you should release this single, and we released the single. So we were really responsive to what our audience was saying. And then at the end of each video, we had really clear call to action. So you can see there on the right, for people to go to the Scenes for Survival Hardship Fund, to watch more films. There was a subscribe button on YouTube. So we were trying to connect with an audience in all the way we could. So I'm just gonna show you a little bit. How do I? A video, so you get a sense of what that was.
And there was the longest summer. The one that started when it was cold and seemed to last forever.
Stay home, they said. Aye.
Social isolation's getting you on to it.
It's not being alone every time I breathe. I worry.
I need you to tell me what to do. I just want to bug from my mom.
And what is left of her now to us? But nothing. I just want things the way they were. Slan, getting shot.
I don't think I can talk about this.
You can't stop time, can you?
What did you miss of you?
And I'll be remembering the good times.
Oh, I need to keep this going.
Can you tell how long I've been doing here?
I didn't mean to forget.
But we've never lost hope.
It's part of my history, Ireland.
I just wanted to tell someone. What has that all been for?
And I'll always be a tip.
All those beautiful things you've got inside of your head.
You'd be lost without me.
This is the way the world shifts. You're gonna be okay. Eventually. Believe.
Tell her how much she means to me.
Go get a bed.
So let me go back to the presentation. There we go. So, as I said, because the model that we had was social media and YouTube, we didn't have any control over who was accessing the film, and we spent quite a lot of time trying to work out how we would capture the data from those people. And our most successful one was to do a likes campaign on Facebook, which happened kind of in August. And you can see this is the curve of our Facebook Live and how the kind of, very big increase at that point. We did a Facebook Live campaign with the same type of investments the year before, which had an increase, but you can see how much bigger it was, just because there was so much activity and good quality content happening on our channel. So over those months, we had over an additional 15,000 people across our social media. And this is key for us because it means that those are people that we can talk to very cheaply and that we know are interested. So it has an enormous value. And we've tested it since with ticketed shows, and our return investment on Facebook in particular is much higher. What we've worked out is we were trying on social media to encourage people to sign to the email list, and it didn't work. So, you know, what happens in social stays in social, and people just subscribe to, you know, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, but didn't come to the website. But we did have 76,000 page views on the Scenes for Survival page. And all those people, if they've accepted cookies, are people that we can now remarket. And again, we've used that remarketing in shows that we have sold ticketed since then, and that has worked really well. And you can see there's a comparison here in terms of the Google Analytics from last year with the year before, and all the stats were up. So even without touring, we were able to not only maintain, but actually increase our online activity and engagement. So that was really good. And then the data that you can gather from Facebook and Google is not ideal, and YouTube, but you get a sense of where people are based, the kind of, you know, age, etc. Other data that we collected were questionnaires. So we sent through our social media and newsletter and every way we could questionnaires to people to try again to gather more information about them. It worked to an extent. What we found is because we were the ones sending the information, the people that were replying to those questionnaires looked like our normal audience, and we weren't really able to capture all this new audience that we had through the BBC and kind of understand who they were really. So it, you know, it worked, but up to an extent. But the overall conclusion of this project was so we didn't get any box office data, but actually we still got a very important set of data that we're using actively since then. And what I wanted to finish by is in the questionnaire that we sent. One of the questions was how people felt now about theatre online content. And you can see here, there's 43% of people that said that they would now actively seek online theatre content. 30% would say that they would be more likely to watch videos they came across. Only 9% say there's no chance, no change, and then 17% say they, you know, stronger prefer live theatre and won't watch online once theatre open. But it's quite a minority, and I think that is really a shift, I suppose, in our audience that have experienced online theatre during this period. And us as organizations, obviously, none of us can wait until we get into theaters where we can finally sit with people around us and share that emotional experience with actors on stage. But I think we have to really take into account that there's a value in all those projects that we've developed online that is really important, and that we need to find a way to continue to deliver. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you. That was really, really interesting. And we'll have lots of questions to pick up on from that in a second. If I can invite Frédérique, if you would like to now share, start your presentation and share your screen, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Bien entendu. Alors, bonjour tout le monde. Grand plaisir d'être avec vous aujourd'hui et de vous partager l'expérience du TNM au cours de la dernière année, de cette année de de pandémie où le TNM était, disons, au niveau numérique, très peu présent. Et face à ce qui semblait assez inévitable, donc la fermeture des salles, le TNM a évidemment refait sa programmation, proposé une programmation alternative et publié, produit et rendu public 8 spectacles en web diffusion au cours de la dernière année, là où normalement le TNM présente 5 spectacles dans sa saison régulière avec des fois 1 ou 2 spectacles hors saison. 8 spectacles qui étaient alors pas du tout sur les cartons au mois de mars 2020. Ça a été tout un défi, autant pour les équipes de production, les équipes de communication, évidemment, et aussi pour les équipes de service à la clientèle qui ont dû accompagner aussi les clients dans l'intégration de cette nouvelle façon d'accéder à la culture. Alors, j'aimerais pouvoir dire qu'on avait des chiffres de diffusion de 16 millions, comme les collègues en Écosse. Normalement, le TNM accueille environ 150 000 spectateurs au TNM. On est quand même très heureux d'avoir eu au-delà de 30 000 visionnements sur dans ce qui s'avère la première année de notre année numérique. Et on a évidemment fait des sondages après chaque spectacle, chaque web diffusion pour avoir le pouls des gens sur leur expérience, sur leurs recommandations auprès de leur entourage. Alors, je vous présente une petite vidéo qui dure quand même 5 minutes, ce qui est presque la moitié du temps alloué ici. Mais vous allez lire à travers ça les statistiques qu'on a recueillies et ainsi que les commentaires. Et si des fois on se questionne sur la pertinence ou la pérennité de la web diffusion, je vous reviendrai d'ailleurs avec d'autres statistiques après la petite présentation que voici, que je vous partage à l'instant.
C'est ainsi que la nuit des rois s'engage sur la route, à siffler entre ses dents tout ce que vous voudrez.
Que les ombres des amours viennent enfiler leur parure pour qu'au coucher du jour les amants apposent leur signature. Que les ombres des amours viennent déposer leurs armures pour qu'emplis de bravoure les visages deviennent gravures.
Alors, voilà, ce qu'on a pu constater quand même, c'est que la web diffusion nous permet d'élargir évidemment notre public. De tous les comptes qui se sont créés cet automne, 57% étaient des nouveaux comptes. On a rejoint géographiquement des gens qui n'avaient pas l'habitude de fréquenter le TNM. Presque la moitié des gens qui ont acheté la web diffusion restaient à plus d'1 heure de Montréal. Et on mentionnait aussi dans la vidéo que, évidemment, la stratégie de forfaitisation des web diffusions est vraiment celle qui nous amène le volume qu'on souhaite pour, évidemment, atteindre les objectifs. Donc, 38% des acheteurs ont acheté l'équivalent de 70% de l'ensemble des liens qui ont été achetés durant la dernière année. Donc, cette approche de forfaitisation rend l'expérience plus profitable, disons. Et puis, cet hiver, on avait des projets un peu plus laboratoires, un peu plus nichés. Et on se rend compte que ça a été évidemment, même au niveau des projections, on s'attendait à ce qu'il y ait un peu moins de monde. Mais il nous reste à aller valider un peu là, cette information-là, savoir est-ce que c'est vraiment la proposition qui faisait en sorte que disons, le retour était plus difficile, ou est-ce que c'était la tarification, l'expérience? Il nous reste à aller, disons, sonder les gens, parce que malgré tous les courriels post-spectacle et la réponse favorable qu'on avait, disons, les gens sont un peu moins au rendez-vous, mais il faut aller au-delà, évidemment, de l'intuition. Donc, c'est la présentation que j'avais à vous faire par rapport à toute l'approche numérique du TNM au cours de la dernière année.
Thank you both. That was really, really interesting. So I have some kind of questions to start us off. But as we talk, if you have just reflections or other thoughts that you think will be of interest to everybody, then please do share them. And for those joining us, again, a reminder that if you have a question to either of our speakers, you can please put that into the chat, and we will pick that up. So Charlotte, I will start with a question to you. A really fantastic example, the scenes for survival. Was that, I mean, it was obviously a very different piece of work to what you're used to doing, and it was a response to the pandemic. I don't think, though, it was the first time that you had done digital performances or digital content of that type. So what was it about that particular project that was so different from a data perspective? Was it that you were having to react so quickly that you were not necessarily able to, target it very specifically at an audience? How was it different to how you would usually, create this type of content?
So we had previously created kind of artistic videos, and so in that sense, it wasn't that different, although the production of them was really different because it was in the middle of a pandemic and we couldn't get out film teams to go and film people. But in terms what changed was the volume. We were releasing 3 new films per week, during a period of, so that it was really intense. But in terms of the mode of distribution, it was that partnership with the BBC that enabled us to cross-post our videos and to reach a completely different audience. And that was a really powerful thing. And Frédérique, you made a comment about the number of views, and it's interesting because we I had to do a paper for our board, actually, the board meeting that happened today, to explain that all views are not the same online. So a view, someone that has bought a ticket online to watch an online show is much more engaged than a Facebook view, which counts a view at 3 seconds. So out of those 60 million views, a lot of them don't signify a deep engagement, but there's no other ways that we have nowadays to kind of count that, because we don't have access to the BBC data. Mm-hmm. But even, notwithstand that, the reach of it was enormous. Like we'd never seen anything like that. But yeah, so the difference was really in the mode of distribution and in that partnership with another broadcaster, but that could be done with any partner that has Facebook and that has followers. I did that with Nowness in the UK. I don't know if you know them. They're a huge platform for short films as well, for Scottish Ballet. And again, that technique of cross posting is hugely advantageous for increase the reach of videos.
Interesting, thank you. And Frédérique, at the end of your presentation there, you mentioned that you mentioned that you perhaps didn't get the reach that you wanted, and I wondered if you could just talk a bit more about that. Was it that in comparison to physical attendees, it wasn't the same? What was the disappointment there?
En fait, c'est que notre automne numérique a été beaucoup axé sur des spectacles, je dirais, grand public, la collaboration avec l'Orchestre métropolitain et le maestro Yannick Nézet-Séguin. On avait le spectacle, entre autres, Pierre et le Loup, qui est très grand public, même un public qui, je dirais, même un peu différent du public TNM. Et donc, et on a présenté aussi un seul laboratoire dans les 5 spectacles qu'on a présentés à l'automne. Et puis on a terminé assez fort avec la pièce La vallée des avalées de l'auteur Régent Ducharme, qui est un auteur très associé là, au TNM. Et donc, les gens s'attendent beaucoup à voir des projets, je dirais, finis, complets. On sait d'emblée que des laboratoires, ça va intéresser des gens qui ont vraiment une très grande curiosité théâtrale, mais peut-être moins le grand public. Alors, je dirais peut-être face à un certain essoufflement de modification de programmation, il y avait eu une décision consciente pour l'hiver de présenter des laboratoires sur des spectacles qui étaient prévus initialement. Donc, on savait que on n'allait pas être aussi grand public qu'on l'avait été à l'automne. Donc, les chiffres, je dirais, quand on parle de rétention, si la proposition est différente, on ne peut pas s'attendre à avoir les mêmes chiffres de rétention, évidemment. Donc, mais en même temps, j'ai une grande soif de connaissances et d'aller au-delà de l'intuition et d'aller sonder, évidemment, là, si... qu'est-ce qui fait que les gens ne sont pas venus? Est-ce que c'est effectivement la proposition artistique? Est-ce que c'est le fait que la tarification était peut-être pas ajustée convenablement? Est-ce que l'expérience que dans les sondages, on voyait quand même que la réponse était bonne? Est-ce que l'expérience en soi, est-ce qu'il y a un essoufflement du mode web diffusion alors qu'on passe la journée devant nos écrans? Ça peut être aussi très... c'est important de bien mesurer ces choses-là, voir si c'est un essoufflement qui est ponctuel, est-ce qu'il y a des choses sur lesquelles on peut agir, et puis pour pouvoir justement adapter nos projets, notre proposition pour l'automne prochain, par exemple.
Okay, thank you. So the audience agency in the UK has been undertaking some research into how audiences there have been responding to digital performances and content. And it's interesting that you mention screen fatigue. Certainly, we saw a kind of drop in the number of people generally engaging, if they were motivated to engage for entertainment purposes. So there was a sense that people were certainly feeling a bit of that. On the positive side, the research that we continue to do asks people about their future intentions when it comes to digital, even post-COVID. And certainly that's really positive and is showing that I think it's 1 in 3 people when it came to online streaming, for example, of performances, were saying that they would continue to engage online as well as physically. So hopefully that's good news. Charlotte, can I ask you a little bit about what you know about the profile of your audiences and how, I mean, so perhaps for that particular project, I think you don't know much because, as you explained, it's not ticketed, it wasn't a ticketed project. So more generally, what kinds of data, what sort of data do you have about people engaging with the theatre, or like in an online way, in terms of their sort of profile, their motivations? What kinds of data do you collect, generally?
Yeah, so we the type of data that we collect has been the same as we do for a normal show. So kind of protected characteristics, gender identity, ethnicity, all of that, location, which, in the case when it's ticketed, we have that from their ticketing data. And what we found is that there was a little change. So there was a wider geographical spread than we would have normally had, just because of the digital proposition. And it was interesting in Frédérique's film, there was a lot of people saying, well, I can't physically attend theatre now, but this has enabled us, and we had those kind of feedback as well on questionnaires. But also we did a ticketed online event in collaboration with the Lyceum and the Edinburgh International Festival, which was Lament for Sheku Bayo, which was a poetic response to the death of a young Black man in custody in Scotland that happened 5 years ago, and around all the Black Lives Matter. So we were able to touch people in the United States, which obviously wouldn't have had access to, which was wonderful, and Australia, and there was a few coming from Canada as well. So that was wonderful for us to feel that we were talking to the world at that moment. In terms of profiling, what we found is that they actually look the same as our normal audience. So we had a high percentage of new audience, so the new bookers. I mean, with the adjustments, it's probably like 80% new. It's really, so for us, it's quite normal to have a really high percentage of new bookers because we don't have a venue, and therefore we tour to different places all the time. But
of course, yeah,
it's much higher than usual. But in the profiling, they kind of look the same. So there's perhaps this perception that online makes you access a younger audience, or a kind of, with us it didn't really, it was kind of the same audience with some adjustments that we always have because of the kind of programming. But yeah, that was an interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, certainly, again, from the research that the Audience Agency has been doing, when you look across different art forms, including performing arts, the age, the kind of age profile does change, but interestingly was generally an older audience, which you know, kind of maps onto physical attendees rather than a younger audience. So I think it is interesting because sometimes there is a sense that digital is helps you reach a young audience, but obviously it's all dependent on the content and the topic and the subject matter. Yeah, it's a it's a kind of minefield of information to navigate, isn't it? Frédérique, do you have any thoughts from your perspective in terms of location of your of those viewers? Was it you mentioned about the fact that there were people outside, outside the area, so people who couldn't physically attend. Going forward, after COVID has gone, do you think that element, you know, that aspect of being able to reach people outside of your immediate area will be something that you will want to continue with?
Complètement. On est en train actuellement de bâtir des ponts avec des communautés francophones hors Québec pour rejoindre encore plus facilement les amoureux de théâtre qui se trouvent à travers le Canada. Et éventuellement, on veut même, on a commencé aussi à bâtir des ponts avec certains organismes en Europe. Donc, l'idée, c'est de rejoindre les francophones, peu importe où ils se trouvent. Et l'autre volet que je n'ai pas mentionné, c'est au niveau scolaire. Le TNM a pris acte du défi de la pandémie pour les enseignants en leur offrant l'accès aux web diffusions gratuitement cette année. Donc, nous, on a mis le programme, on l'a annoncé auprès des instances et puis je dirais qu'on a rejoint pour nous 1000 professeurs. C'est 10 fois plus que le nombre de professeurs avec qui on parle habituellement. Et donc, ils avaient la possibilité de présenter ces web diffusions-là en classe gratuitement. On s'entend avec des projets comme Le Petit Prince ou Pierre et le Loup, c'était tout à fait scolaire. Et quand on parle de développement de public, hein, il y a d'autres études là, qui ont été publiées dernièrement ici à Montréal sur le lien direct entre disons, le contact avec la culture alors qu'ils sont étudiants. Et le fait que ça devienne des spectateurs de demain. Donc, je pense que la démocratisation, l'accès à l'art, souvent c'est un défi d'amener les jeunes dans les écoles. Ce peut être des défis logistiques, ça peut être des défis monétaires pour les écoles, mais de rendre l'art dans les écoles, c'est sûr que ça rend, même une spectatrice qui disait, ça ne remplacera jamais l'expérience en salle, mais c'est un premier contact. Et si ce premier contact-là amène un deuxième contact, amène une curiosité qui amène ces jeunes-là à devenir les spectateurs de demain, c'est définitivement une voie sur laquelle il faut continuer à travailler. Et ça, on y croit beaucoup au TNM. Alors, et c'est ce qui nous motive aussi à poursuivre la web diffusion, malgré tous les défis, disons, budgétaires que ça peut représenter, parce qu'on s'entend que les revenus générés par la web diffusion ne sont jamais équivalents à ce qui peut se faire en salle, mais ça reste que le développement de public, que ce soit les gens en région, mais que ce soit les jeunes dans les classes, c'est essentiel. Et j'ajouterais, il y a d'autres initiatives, là, je pense que Charlotte en avait mentionné aussi, mais c'est peut-être plus facile aussi de faire appel à la fibre philanthropique des gens. On a une valeur de web diffusion accordée, mais je pense qu'on peut aussi laisser aux gens le soin de pouvoir aller plus loin que la valeur juste de cette web diffusion-là, puis de supporter ces organismes culturels. Et c'est peut-être quelque chose sur lequel on n'a pas assez tablé, nous, dans notre première année, et sur lequel on planche pour la prochaine année.
I just wanted to react to that actually, because we had the same, well, one beautiful experience with a filmed show that we had for Christmas, and in the UK and in Scotland in particular, there's a huge culture of pantomime at Christmas, where often for families this is the only moment in the year where they have contact with the theater, and it's a huge tradition. They go with their families, and it's like it just means Christmas for everyone. And obviously it was all cancelled this year, and we felt distraught about that. And National Theatre of Scotland usually doesn't operate at Christmas because it's a moment where companies and venues make a lot of money, and we don't want to disrupt that, you know, so we don't come as a competitor at this point. But this year, because we were the only one that, you know, there was not a lot of people that could create work, so we did, and we distributed through schools, as Frédérique mentioned, and I can't remember how many schools, but it was like, I want to say 130 across Scotland, with over 30,000 pupils watched the show, and also we were able to bring it to care homes and hospitals, which were two groups of people, again, that during the pandemic were completely isolated and in dire need of anything to culture and joy and yeah. So that was just a really amazing thing to do. And then the second thing that Frédérique mentioned around people's and audiences' generosity and understanding of the dire situation that culture sector was in, and we had, as a lot of the shows that we put online, we put them on a pay what you wish scale. Sometimes it started at 0, so people could choose to have it for free, sometimes at £5, and it was a sliding scale. And it was just really beautiful to see that the majority of people were choosing to pay what they would have paid if they had been at the theater, kind of, and then make donations in addition to that, within the transaction path. So there's something about trusting our audience to know the value of what we do that was really wonderful, I think.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you. I just have a couple more questions to round us off, and then if anybody, I keep an eye on the chat, but I don't think we have any at the moment. But so both of you have spoken about the kind of issue of income generation when it comes to online, and how difficult that can be in comparison to physical attendance. I wondered whether either of you have any thoughts about, from what you've seen already in terms of what the data has told you already, about what the kind of different business models might be for income generation online. Obviously, there is the sort of standard buying a ticket for a live online stream, buying a ticket for a pre-recorded. The audience agency, we've seen examples, lots of examples around kind of learning type content events, but there is within the sector generally this worry about how digital is not sustainable as a business model in the same way as physical attendance. So I just wondered if you both have thoughts on that. Charlotte, perhaps you can go first.
So we've had loads of conversation on that subject, and it's really interesting to see the models that already exist in the sector and that work successfully. So National Theatre, GB, based in London, have got a really successful digital model with cinema, broadcast to cinema, which I think they break even and sometimes make profit of. We have found that there's something philosophically, also the discussions that we've had, because we are funded to create work for theatres, physical work. And so during this period, it has felt absolutely fine for us to spend our, the funding that we get and partly on that. But I think it's going to feel different once we can go back to venues. And one of the models that has really worked for us is to do in partnership with broadcasters. And we created a film adaptation of a show called Adam during the lockdown, in collaboration again with BBC4 and BBC Scotland, which meant that we could produce it without, it was basically majorly funded by broadcasters. We will in 18 months have the possibility to put it online for our audience as a paying model, and we're looking at distribution internationally. So that is a model that seems to work, in which we wouldn't have to put the funding there, which feels important, not right now, but it feels like it's going to become important when we can tour again in theaters.
Interesting. Thank you, Charlotte. Frédérique, do you have any thoughts? I know you were saying it's sort of been, this phase of work has been a sort of a first step for your theatre, and that you have a lot to think about, and as you go forward. I wonder if you have any thoughts on the kind of income side of things.
Oui, ben, en fait, ma première réflexion, c'est que les représentations en salle sont aussi subventionnées, en tout cas pour le TNM, là. Donc, on peut difficilement penser qu'on peut arriver avec un nouveau produit qui s'autofinance par lui-même, surtout pas avec les règles qui existent dans le milieu artistique. Du moins, j'imagine que ça doit être un peu pareil partout, mais et c'est bien que ce soit ici, parce qu'à la base, ça vise à protéger les artistes. Donc, et ça, c'était peut-être l'autre défi, hein? On a des cadres réglementaires assez bien établis dans un monde en transformation. Donc, ça prend du temps aussi adapté. Et tantôt, Charlotte parlait de faire confiance à notre auditoire pour générer des revenus. Il faut aussi faire confiance, aussi ou mériter la confiance pour pouvoir changer le modèle d'affaires et que tout le monde ne se sente pas, je dirais, lésé. Mais il faut voir évoluer les choses. Nous, de notre côté, on avait établi un modèle avec à même pas une année d'expérience. Donc, je pense que c'est un, comment on dirait bien ça, un work in progress. Donc, nous, on en tire encore des leçons. On est encore en train de réfléchir sur comment on va positionner ça à long terme. Charlotte parlait aussi de partenariat avec la BBC. On rêve de pouvoir aussi arriver à établir des partenariats avec nos diffuseurs nationaux sur certaines productions, donc des projets qui vont demander encore plus d'investissement que quand on fait des projets à l'interne. Donc, confiance, bâtir la relation, bâtir aussi le public. Hein, c'est la première année, donc je ne pense pas qu'on peut parler d'un modèle d'affaires établi.
Sure, it's still a work in progress.
Exact.
Perfect, thank you. So we have a question. We do have a question in the chat, which I will read out. It's actually a question for you, Frédérique, regarding webcasting. Can you please shed some light on the costs associated with the digital shift? What investments did you have to make besides the purchase of a camera? And then I suppose that was a purchase. That's the question.
Oui, excellente question. En fait, c'est intéressant parce qu'on a des bonnes discussions à l'interne sur est-ce qu'on devrait être notre propre producteur, est-ce qu'on engage des gens, est-ce qu'on acquiert de l'équipement. Et évidemment, les gens du côté production qui s'y connaissent davantage vont toujours mettre de l'avant que du matériel comme ça coûte extrêmement cher et que c'est continuellement en évolution. Donc, ça ne vaut pas la peine d'acheter, vaut mieux louer. Mais j'ai l'impression qu'après ça, ça devient des coûts qui n'en finissent jamais d'être présents. On finit jamais par amortir ces coûts-là. Mais donc, dans notre première année, on était beaucoup en mode sous-traitance de la partie captation, donc beaucoup en mode location d'équipement et d'expertise. Mais le TNM est dans une phase d'agrandissement actuellement. Malheureusement, on aurait aimé que ces travaux-là se fassent à travers la pandémie et qu'on finisse la pandémie avec des nouveaux locaux. Dans cet agrandissement-là, il y aura une nouvelle salle qu'on veut dédier à toute l'innovation technologique. Et je pense qu'on va en finir par développer une expertise interne qui va profiter à la grande salle. Donc, voilà.
Thank you. And I think we're almost up to time now. So I would just like to say thank our speakers very, very much for sharing really, really useful insights. There is a survey that we would love you to complete in terms of your response to today. I think there are some very useful takeaways from this. I think listening to your audiences and the importance of kind of collecting whatever data you can around your online activity was a key one for me. And I think also the fact that acknowledging that lots of most organizations are still learning about all of this. Even National Theatre Scotland with those fantastic amazing projects. I think, Charlotte, you were saying as well that there's still so much to learn about all of this, which I think is great for everyone to hear. So we would just like to end to say thank you very much for attending, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the event. And do fill out that survey and let us know what you think. And take care and have a good day, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.